Welcome everyone to our last webinar of the 2025 season. This is the 23rd of our 6th year of doing these webinars. And the webinar today is driver performance analysis. We've talked a long time about kind of breaking data down. It can be pretty complex when you first start to look at it. Pardon me. And I always try to say there's really three different forms of data that we're looking at, and it's driver performance, the one we're going to talk about today, it's vehicle performance, and it's vehicle health. And we've done those other two in the last 2 or 3 webinars. So this is the last one of this 3 sides of data analysis. So let's jump to the first slide, and we'll give you a little bit of an idea of who I am. I haven't reintroduced myself in a while. Roger Caddell, AIM Sports National Training Manager. I have a long history in motorsports as a participant and as a car owner. And the thing that I did when I first started racing was off-road racing, and family sport with my father and family. And this is a picture of me racing this 2-seater in Sacramento, California at Prairie City OHV Park. I did a little bit of circle track stuff. Didn't allow us, had no data in the off-road cars. Didn't even think that car had a tack in it. But and then other than that, it's oil pressure lights and an alternator light for if the fan belt came off. Then while I was still off-road racing, did a little bit of circle track racing. This was at the old Spanaway Speedway, not too far from where I'm sitting right now. Closed down now, a housing development. And the little Volkswagen Rabbit that I raced for a good friend of mine, Ron Hart, and had a good time with that. No data in that, obviously, as well. And then my son got old enough to start racing, and this was his Spec Miata, winner of the 2006 SCCA runoffs at Topeka, Kansas. And so I was a car owner at that point, and had stopped racing myself. He went on to race some other things as well, so I had a good time. That's when I really got into data, is when we got it from karting and then into the Spec Miata MX-5s and the Mustangs and some other stuff that he did. So, and then the entire time I've been working with, even before I went to work for AIM, but been working for AIM for quite some time, 15 years maybe, something like that. And I've been doing webinars all over the North America. And this one here happens to be at VAC, I think, in the BMW Prep Shop Parts House. Tony invited us in there a number of times, and this was in Philadelphia at VAC, or that particular one. But we did 15 or 20 of these a year all over North America. So I mentioned the data analysis triangle, and it's something that I've pushed ever since I first started training data, because it's a little hard to understand, and you always want to help people get in there and understand that hey, you can ignore some things at first, right? Get rid of some things out of your mind, and if we're going to focus on something, let's get rid of some of those squiggly lines, and let's work on one piece of this at a time. And the one we're going to talk about today is vehicle health, but we've also talked recently about, we're going to talk about driver performance. We've already talked about vehicle health, and we've talked about vehicle performance. So the one we're going to talk about today is driver performance. The funny part about these is these pieces of the triangle. It's going to fit into one of those 3. Whenever if you're looking to go faster in that corner, is it the driver you're looking to help, or are you trying to help the car get faster? So it fits into those, but there's always crossover. So I always kind of joke about it a little bit and say, maybe this is maybe this data analysis triangle is maybe better shown as a Venn diagram, right? So you could think of it this way as well. So the theory is all kind of the same, but it helps people kind of get rid of a little bit of the complexity of the data if you start to think of it this way. The other thing that I always try to make sure everybody understands, we're kind of starting over with some of the basics here real quickly, and then we're going to jump in. The other 3 things another thing I kind of build a 3 basic steps for is the whole concept of, when you go to look at your data in analysis, what you really need to do is start to think, what happened? And I've given a few examples. You're faster average speed in turn 1. What happened? It's yes or no, black and white. I lost time braking into turn 6 compared to my previous laps or against my teammate. I accelerated better out of turn 9. One of these things, these are not questions, these are just facts, right? You can look at your data, you can look at, you bring up 2 speed traces and you can look at it and say, hey, I gained some time right here, I lost some time here. So always the next step that we do is where did it happen? What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? So we're going to just go across, what happened? Faster average speed in turn 1. The where piece wasn't necessarily it was turn 1. That's pretty clear, right? But we have to start to break down in order to analyze the data. You got to think like a driver, think like a racer. We got to break down that corner. We got to break down where it happened because different things will be the why. So we start to think of it, was it the entry of the corner that where we started to gain that speed, or was it the middle of the corner? Was it the exit? Where in that corner did it happen? And that helps drive us towards the third question here is why did this happen? Did you take a better line? Did you just flat enter with a higher speed? Did you turn in and hold more higher lateral G's? The funny part about this third why question is you may say, hey, I had higher lateral G's. Okay, that you don't stop there. Okay, then why did that happen? And you continue to dig in until you understand why you were faster, had a faster average speed in turn 1. Same thing with lost time in braking. Where did it happen? Did it happen under the initial application of the brakes or the release, or did where in this braking area did you start to see these differences, or was it across the board? Sometimes it is. And then why did it happen? Did you have better braking? Did you have higher pressure? Did you have, had a lockup in one and not in the other? All of these kind of things. It's you just keep on drilling down with the why question until you get to a point where you have a concrete understanding of what happened and what you're going to change for the next time you go back out on the track. Same thing on accelerating better out of 9. Did you get back on the throttle earlier on the exit? Was did it happen on at the exit of the corner, part way out, during a shift, at the end of the straightaway? Where was the speed seen? And then why? Did you have more power, faster shifts? Did better line on the exit? What happened there that helped you get there? So always think about this. It's fundamental for me because it can be so overwhelming that we do these two things, these two basic ideas: the data analysis triangle, understand and only focus on one piece of what you're doing at a time. Leave the vehicle performance for a little bit. Focus just on the driver stuff that we're going to talk about today when you're working on yourself or the person that you're helping drive. If it's vehicle performance you're worrying about, kind of push the other two off to the side. They're always there, but really focus on one or the other. And then on the vehicle health, just look at your temperatures and pressures and other things, and don't worry about this. And that really thins down the amount of data that you're being overwhelmed with. Okay, and then of course, then you got to walk through these questions of understanding to jump in there until you get enough experience to know exactly where you want to jump into. A little bit about what we're going to do today with some of these user profiles. These are set up for you to kind of jump in and maybe skip a few of these steps once you kind of get a handle on it. But I tend to always think this one through. I always say it in my mind. What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? I say that in my mind because it helps me focus on drilling down and not jumping ahead and skipping a step, which sometimes can send you the wrong direction. So keep that in mind. We're going to jump in and look at live data and do a little bit of this right off the bat. I put links at the beginning of the chat. If you haven't seen that, let me know. If you can't see that in the chat, let me know. I will repost it. But I put a link in there for the presentation for today. Some of the stuff we just went over. If you want to download that PowerPoint, it's as a PDF. And we're going to look at a couple of different user profiles today. Both of those user profiles are available with links in the chat box and the math channels. You're going to see a ton of math channels today. If you are watching this later on YouTube, all of the same links and anything else I talk about the rest of this hour will all be in the description, in the YouTube description once I get this up on the internet a little bit later this evening. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let me bring up Race Studio 3. And the first thing I kind of want to talk about is Sometimes some of you may have only GPS channels. And the other thing about data analysis is that if you have a Solo or you have an MXM that just has the GPS channels built in and maybe a water temperature or something, keep in mind that that's the GPS channels will get you quite a bit of the direction that you want to go and get you there. So let me show you a couple of GPS channels and give you an idea of just some of the stuff you can do really quickly for driver performance, and then we'll jump into some additional channels. Here's a GPS tab. Again, this user profile is available for you to download and load onto your own Race Studio 3 version, and all of these tabs. We're going to go through all of these tabs pretty briefly, but give you an idea. With GPS only, you get, of course, the speed trace. You get the if you bring up a second, maybe your best 3 laps. Select 3 best laps. That laps tab up in that laps button in the upper right corner is a good friend of mine. You end up with, again, we're looking at just GPS channels that are available in Race Studio 3 from all of our devices. And so you've got these here. These are the 3 best laps of the data that we're looking at. And and you can see real quickly here, the best lap is the red lap, and 124.2, a 3, and then another 124.2. The blue one is fairly close to the red one, but the red one being the best lap. And then you can start to look at the time compare bar. You can look at the speed trace, the lateral forces, the left and right, and the longitudinal forces when the driver was on the throttle or on the brakes. And I've even used brought up the radius channel. It's a calculated channel that's in all of your GPS data. So right off the bat, we can see that let's make the red one the active channel, so it's the flat line down here in the time compare bar. And the other lap, the other 2 laps, we're losing quite a bit of time here. There's almost 0.3 of a second just in the end of the front straightaway in the braking. This is Portland International Raceway, and you can kind of see they lost a lot of time coming in, but then the red one was a little bit slower because it's actually kind of working its way back down to being mostly tied here, over here at the middle of turn 4. And but you can kind of see where the driver gained some time, lost, and then lost and gained, and we talked about in the presentation, what happened, where did it happen. Boy, the GPS channels get those 2 covered pretty quickly. What happened? Hey, you were really quick at the end of the straightaway on this particular lap. You went deep on the brakes, overdid it a little bit on the brakes and lost some time on the way out. And and then other spots on the track where you might have been pretty good, even coming off of this last corner, rolled through the middle of this last corner, getting out of the front straight pretty good, and gained some time. The blue lap was ahead, but got behind just on that run from the last corner to the start-finish line. So what happened, where did it happen, is very easy to see in GPS data, and the why can be inferred by basically looking at some of these other channels and trying to understand what happened. Yes, we don't know exactly what the driver did. We don't have steering, we don't have throttle, we don't have brake pressure, we don't have gear position, we don't have RPM. But boy, you can sure see a lot of those, some of these basics in here. And if you understand motorsports and you understand a little bit about what's going on the track, what you're seeing here by where they turn in and how hard they hit the brakes, and how sharp and how they maybe attacked a corner slightly different. Here we can see the radius down here. The driver here turned in late. The radius is building. The smaller the number it is, the tighter the car is turning, and then all of a sudden had to really had to give it a whole nother pull here right at the end. Was starting to open his hands and then had to pull it again, which then you can see the throttle, the brake is coming up and off, and then had to hit the brake pretty hard here at the leading into the second corner. And if we zoom in and see the other piece of this that is available for us with GPS only is the driven line. Clearly the red driver, which was the fast one, came into this corner the fastest, and but came in pretty shallow, probably passing another car, and that really kind of came in so fast and And when he went through this turn one entering into the festival curves, the driver ended up to the driver's left, and that kind of slowed him down in the apex, and then of course exiting. Knew he couldn't go through that same speed with this kind of an angle into that corner. So all with just GPS. For those of you that go out and run with a Solo or a Micron in your cart, and you don't have all these other channels, well, I just wanted to kind of show that there is some really power in the GPS channels. It may not get you 100% of everything you want or need, but it answers the first two parts of those of our data analysis triangle, and our steps into doing this. What happened and where did it happen, and a pretty good idea of the why. We were able to infer that maybe it was a driver line and passing somebody that kind of messed up the second part of this corner, and ended up being a little bit slower on the way out, which then lost some speed. So keep that in mind as you're looking at it. And even if you have all those other channels, many folks, this is where they start when they first start looking at data, even if they have steering, brake pressure, throttle, and all the rest of it. This kind of a tab is where they will go to look first. Okay, perfect. So the next thing that I thought we would talk a little bit about is lap times. Again, a GPS only. If all you had was GPS, you would have this. So we kind of just go to a split times report. We can get in there and start to look at all of the lap times that the driver did. And we can not only do that, but one of the powerful things that the software is going to give you is not only the lap times, which is certainly, we can look at that. We can see the statistical information about it. We can see the best lap time, the average laps, the maximum and the median. And we can also then see some other things, which gets us into the two other calculated lap times, which can be important if you do some things right. And we're going to talk about that now. Best theoretical lap and best rolling lap. Both of those are laps you actually, you ran those segments, but the best rolling lap, let's take it first. All of these laps that we first started talking about are laps from start finish back to start finish. Okay, that's your lap time. That's when we said set the start finish line coordinate, and that's what you get. The best rolling lap, however, is depending on where you make your breaks in your segments on your track map. The software will go through, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments in this particular track map. And what it does is it looks at each one of these and it runs the math from start to finish, and it looks for the best 6 segments in a row. It doesn't care if it's from starting getting on the back straightaway back to the beginning on the back straightaway, or if it's from the middle of the festival curve all the way back around to the same exact spot, but it does the math and it highlights it in yellow. And in this particular case, it was from right here, getting on the front straightaway. The best lap the driver did, best rolling lap, was starting here at the beginning of the front straightaway, and it did this 11.988, and then it ran the rest of the lap back to there again, and that best rolling lap was a 124.133. The driver's best lap was a 124.27 from start finish to start finish. I like, as a driver, as a tool for the driver to understand, especially if there's traffic or if the driver's inconsistent as the driver's learning and getting up to speed, that best rolling lap can be a powerful tool, because sometimes you can't get a good lap from here to back to the start finish line. But if you're trying to figure out, hey, is the driver starting to get the hang of it, you can look at that best rolling lap, and the driver truly turned that lap. It just happened to not be from this specific start finish line back to start finish. That's a pretty powerful tool to look at. It's even a very powerful tool for real experienced users that maybe you don't want your entire competition to, if it's a qualifying, or a practice session beforehand, you don't want everybody to know how fast you really are. Maybe you come down here and you go into the festival curves and you kind of take it kind of easy, and then about from here and then back around to here, you run a hard lap. Now, meanwhile, you've kind of taken it easy in part of the track. Maybe you do it from back here, getting on the back straightaway. You ran a hard lap, and then you kind of take a couple corners, at 75% or something. You come back in. The timesheet shows that you run some 126s, mid 126s. Nobody's worrying about you. But meanwhile, you know, when you come in and look at your best rolling lap that you've got a 120, a high 123 because you ran it fast from there to there. The games of motorsports, but just another tool for you in case it's something you want to use it that way. And then the third one is best theoretical lap. Best theoretical lap is we've broken this track into these 6 segments, and when we look at the split times report, these red highlighted areas, those are the best lap time, the best segment time that you did in each one of these. Now the funny part is, if you look at this data right here, the best these times. That's the slowest. The best is the blue ones. I'm sorry. The best is the blue ones, and you've got the 2 blue ones are part of his best lap and part of the rolling lap, but then there's your best segment time here was on lap 18. The best segment for the back straightaway was on the last lap, just before coming to the checkered flag. It might have been a big draft or something. And the best this best red zone right over here was right near the end. And so some of your best segments are not included in your best rolling or your best lap, but we do stick all those together and give you a best theoretical lap. So if we put all those blues together, a 123.509 is what the car is theoretically capable of. You can do some things to make your best theoretical be much more realistic and achievable. If you let the AIM software break the track up into 15 segments, and the segment breaks are all when you're hitting the throttle or hitting the brake, or right when you turn into a corner. Those are transition periods that the driver is doing something and making a change. So if the driver went way deep on the brakes, an additional 20 feet or so, could have really hurt this segment, but really could have helped one segment, but really hurt the next one. Okay, and that can so you can really kind of get some false theoretical segment times that way. What I suggest you do is if you, and I like to include a time distance graph at the bottom of a lot of things so I can see where on the track we are at. But if you notice here, I broke the track up, and this is something I suggest you do. Unless you're working specifically on some braking or some certain cornering stuff, you're going to see that I have a lot of track maps. For theoretical lapping, go in and cut these segments at a spot where the driver is still accelerating. If I go into this working one here, just to give us a better idea how, and a little bit bigger where we can see the track map, you'll notice that here's the driver's throttle position. I went back to right here. It was before he lifts for the corner, and I checked the number of laps. This is always before, so this is a pretty good lap spot for a brake that is not at exact transition. Same thing on the end of the braking zone. The driver's back to full throttle. I'm not going to brake it right in the middle of a corner where maybe a corner speed maybe kind of screws that up. We have this whole set of corners at the far west end of the track here. I wait till the driver's getting up and back on the throttle, getting on the back straightaway before I make that end of that segment. And you'll just notice all of these segments are broken in areas that are not a transition period. Okay? What that does for us is it makes this theoretical lap, and I also broke it down to only 6 segments. And a few more is okay, but keep the segments to 5, 6, 7, something like that, and break them at non-critical points. And what you're going to find is you're going to see your theoreticals, this theoretical of 123.5 is probably pretty close to being achievable. And the best rolling lap that they did was only what about 0.6 slower, the best rolling lap, and the best lap was about 0.7 slower, 7 or 0.8 slower. So that is another way of getting your theoretical to be something of value for you as a driver. As you're out there trying some different lines and doing some different things, you can begin to start to make these lap times and these theoreticals and best rolling lap do some good for you as a driver tool. Understand where at the track you were making some gains with you're trying some different lines and some different things. And so keep that in mind, that the split times report is a pretty powerful tool that some people use a lot, but sometimes I think they use it in a way that's maybe a little bit too refined and too exact. And I have found some really good steady ways of finding good information. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, before we jump into some deeper stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the math channels that we're providing here today, and we're going to start to look at a little bit. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to put it into the chat box in case some of you came late and it doesn't show up. There is a downloadable file for these math channels that I'm going to show now. Again, those of you who are watching this later on YouTube, go down to the YouTube description, and all of these math channels will be there available for you. When you import them, I just clicked on the math channel icon in the upper right. It opens up the math channel dialog box. These are the import and export buttons right here. This is coming into the software. This is going out. So if I hover over that, it will say import other math channels from a drive. So just save that file. It comes in a zipped up file, but unzip it. It'll be the standard AIM math channel file format. Click on this button and go search it out where you saved it and unzipped it onto your hard drive. What you're going to get is not that. You're going to get this December 2025 December webinar. When you import it, this is what it will show up as with this title. And just go in and turn all of these on. These are the math channels we're going to look at today. We're going to look at braking, some ways of helping you with your braking. We're going to look at cornering. We're going to look at coasting, and we're going to look at throttle. The data we're going to look at today does have a full throttle position, steering, the brake pressure, and other things in it. So we're going to actually use all those channels. But if you don't have that, say you have a GPS only, these same basic channels are available from AIM directly under the GPS tab. And you can come in here and you're going to see that they're actually named I tried to follow the same naming structures you could find them. Here's GPS-based corner on, and it uses lateral G's instead of steering, right? And for coasting and let's say brake on, it uses longitudinal G's instead of brake pressure. But for what we're doing here today, I just wanted to show you that there is some GPS channels. If you don't have a sensor, that you'll need to look into those. So throttle on in this case, this happens to be a Spec Racer Ford. So there's the name of the throttle channel. When you get it, if you do not have a Spec Racer Ford, you're going to need to change this channel to your throttle position sensor. All you got to do is replace this little piece right there with whatever your throttle position channel is called, and the math will all start to work. You only have to change the brake on. Here's brake. I did a brake total pressure. All the rest of these all take brake on. So you only have to change the ones that say on. You have to change brake on. You have to corner on works on lateral G, so that one will work right out of the box. Coasting works on brake on, throttle on, and corner on, and of course throttle was the one that needed so the braking and the throttle position are only two, and you only have to change the on. Everything else is embedded, uses the on to trigger the rest of it. So keep that in mind. Math channels are available for you. Download that zipped file and import those into Race Studio 3, and you'll have those available for you. So I'm going to jump out of that. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's go right into how I set this up. This is a user profile that in this case is called AIM Driver Performance Standard. You can let me hook those in here. Put these into the chat box in case you missed it. I know when you join, if you hadn't, if I put them up there earlier, you don't see them in your chat. So there's the standard user profile we're going to look at first, and then we're going to look real quickly at an advanced user profile. This is the standard one. It's the same exact thing. You go into your user profiles box icon, you open it up, and there's the import and there's the export. So all you got to do is import it in. Click on this. It takes you to it. You have to unzip it and put the standard AIM file onto your hard drive, and just import them into here. Then they will show up in your profiles manager. Okay. So the way I like to do it is it's really important to plan ahead to make your data analysis easier at the racetrack. You can do all these. You have data at home already, probably from your car. And so you can come in here and you can set all these up sitting at your in your easy chair watching a little bit of TV. And you can set these up, save them, get them ready to go. Then when you head to the racetrack, all you should have to do is download your data, apply this user profile and come in here, and we try to set things up with some tabs that make it real easy for you to go and look at the individual things you might want to look at. In this case, there's a braking and there's a braking report. Let's just look real quickly at the braking, the graphics, the time distance view with a map, and let's turn it on to let's go back to just a single lap just to make it a little cleaner and easy to see. So if we come in here, we click on the braking, and we can look at a speed trace. I always like to have a speed trace at the top. Here I did a brake total. All I did was I put together the front brake plus the rear brake. It doesn't really matter to me what the pressures are typically, as long as they're relative to the same car in other parts of the track. And I want to know when they hit the brake and the shape of it and things like that. So you could put just the front brake or just the rear brake, or put both of them alongside of each other, but I put them together, and it makes a number that's a little bit higher and a little bit easier to see. So you can kind of start to look at the application of braking. Here's your brake on channel, that the math that we've done to create these little triggers, these switch channels I call them. And then we can do some other things, and we'll show how some of these other things work. But here's a brake rate. I've put it into feet per second, but you could it's just longitudinal G, but it's been trimmed to only when the brake is on, so you don't have longitudinal G where you have the acceleration side and the on and off. It's only when you're in this braking on function, right? And the brake on channel, math channel, I'll look at it in a slightly different way. Your math channels, if you open up a math channel in the channel settings, the math channel is shown to you right here. You can't edit it, but you can quickly just go ahead and look at it. The brake on channel is the brake total, front plus rear, in PSI. If it's greater than 200 PSI, and the other thing that I wanted to make sure we did is I wanted straight line braking, so then I also did, and also the lateral, absolute value of the lateral G's has to be less than 0.25 left and right. So if it's going to be a 1 if it's above 200 and it's inside of a 0.25 lateral acceleration. As soon as you start to turn in, do a little trail braking, as soon as it goes above 0.25, that 1 switch here, this switch here that goes from a 0 to a 1 is going to go back to a 0 as soon as it sees either the pressure comes below 200 or the lateral absolute value of the lateral G's goes above 0.2. So we're really trying to narrow it down to straight line braking for this particular exercise. Maybe you want to see the full braking, but in that case, just look at the brakes and the values with your laterals included. But what I was looking for here is how good is the driver in getting after the brakes, getting up to maximum braking in a straight line before they begin to worry about turning in. Might be a good way to check your brake pads and how good other things are. You can use it for other things obviously too, right? So let's get out of there, and then let's zoom in on this brake one zone just to kind of see it and understand what the driver is doing here. And we're looking at driver performance analysis, right? So I'm zoomed in here, and we can see that the driver comes up and the brake pressure starts to build, and then it comes back off, goes back up, and then there's another release here in here in the middle. Remember, this is his best lap when remember he was probably passing a car, so there was probably some movement here, and such. We'll maybe pick another lap to look at. So what kind of improvements? Let's say this was a good straightforward lap, and they're all like this. I don't think they are, but the thing we would want to talk to this driver about is what we really want to do is we want to build this pressure up pretty quickly, and we want to hold that right near the at maximum braking, maximum pressure, and then hold that and then start to trail off. This additional pop of the brakes is typical here at Portland. You come here and then you got just a little bit of a straight, and if we were to turn on the throttle position here real quickly, you'll see that there's actually a blip of throttle there where the driver throttled up for just a quick second, then hits the brakes again just before throttling up coming off the corner. So that's not an error, that's not a mistake, that's a typical way of looking at this particular track. Okay, so we can start to see these things. Maybe the other thing you'd want to look at is is, now we're digging into the why, right? What happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? Why are we seeing some of these? And so we kind of come down here and we can start to see maybe there's some dips here as the driver, that maybe there's some blips on the throttle. And we can see this big blip here happened right where there is right where the RPM came up on the engine. Maybe there's we could turn on the throttle position as well, and start to see if that, there looks like an auto blip probably here, but certainly it's tied in around the same time, so the driver might have been conscious of that and backed out of the brakes just a tick. What we want to do though is we want to look at this, understand what happened, where did it happen, and why, and what can we do to improve it. So that's how I kind of dig into it. I set up a tab inside of my user profile with the channels I probably will want. Then we might want to add some additional ones in at different times, like I just did here for a little bit of additional information. At this point, the next thing I would do is I would probably back out just a little bit, and I would probably just grab another. Let me back out all the way here, and then let's just grab a different lap. That one there looks similar, right? I was just going to jump in and see if this kind of looked the same, and so we can just let's pick a couple of other ones just for fun. Now that we kind of zoom in a little bit, we can see the driver does that quite a bit. This is probably an area of improvement. Some of these are out on the normal line entering in there. There's our what happened, where it happened, why it happened, what's something to put into the driver's little black book of things to work on and improve in the future. Okay, perfect. So let's. The next thing I want to do is I not only look at graphs for brakes, I also build a channels report that might be very helpful and for you to look at. Now it's a braking report. We've kind of used our math channels, some of our math channel data, some other things, and so here, what I've done is I've created a channels report, and it's the brake total. Again, that's front plus rear brake pressure, and what's the max pressure that the driver used at different times. Looked like pretty early. The general trend here is there was a little bit more pressure at the beginning and a little less pressure here at the maybe at the end, down in the 700s, 800s, and some 900s up here. And does that tell us something? We could dig in and look. Here's the number of feet that the driver was on the brakes. Brake D is brake distance for this entire lap. This is the number of feet the driver was on the lap. When that brake on switch was turned on, this is showing how many feet. This is how many seconds. These are all parts of the math channels we did, all built into some nice little things built in, ready for you to look at and not have to reset it up and make sure, try to make things happen real quickly. So kind of a handy little thing. That's that's some ways of looking at braking. Let's look at the next one, which is throttle position. Throttle and some of the things that are related to throttle. Again, we have our speed trace. We let's turn on our 3 best laps. Go back to 3 best laps. We have throttle. We have the actual throttle position. We have the throttle on. Remember, full throttle on. If we come over here and we go to full on, let's go see what that math channel looks like just for fun, just so we know what we're all looking at. It's when the TPS channel in percentages is above 85%. That's what is triggering this switch. So whenever the driver is up, so here's an area where he was partial throttle, had to wait a little bit, and then boom, was able to get to full throttle for just a little bit, and then we count that. So all the time that these are up at 1, we start to count. Here is our full throttle. TPS full lap T for lap time. How long was the driver on the throttle at this spot of the track? The red and the blue lap was on the throttle longer than the red lap, and the green lap was a little bit more than a half a second short of full throttle time at this point of the track. So we can see this. We can actually read these graphs here. We'll look at the throttle report in just a second. What's the distance that the car was on at full throttle? Just simple math. I've provided you with all these math channels. And then this is kind of an interesting throttle position, full lap percentage at different points of the track. We can click and see what percentage of the lap up to that point was the driver on at full throttle. And you can see here at the first part, because it was full throttle from the start finish line before the braking zone, all three were at 100%. But during that braking, during that braking zone, it lost some. At the end of that braking zone, it was all the way down to 28, because it's cumulative. It's counting as and adding in and to count a percentage, right? So we get here towards the end of the lap, and the blue lap was at 61, the 60.2 and 60.1 for the green. So some math here. These are things that you can look at and look at your qualifying for your race, or you versus your teammate, or in this case, just 3 laps from one run. And you can start to understand and get an understanding of, was it throttle that was I consistent on the throttle? Was I, is there areas of improvement? What can I do? We can go to a throttle report where we put in for every lap that we're looked at. Here is the throttle position, the distance you were on the throttle for every single lap. We can look at it. We can look at the best lap. The lap just before it was the throttle was quite a bit less, almost 200 feet, right? And that accounted for that 9/10 of a difference in lap, right? So there's you can look at that. You can look at the integral of the full on, this is the number of seconds the driver was on the full throttle for the entire lap. And this is the percentage at the end of the lap, right here at the start finish line. We calculate and show you the throttle on percentage. So the 71.8 was the highest percentage that this driver was on at full throttle. Okay, kind of interesting stuff that we can just set ourselves up for. You may not use these tabs every time you analyze data, but they're all just sitting here waiting for you just to jump in and quickly find some things if you're after it. Cornering, the corner on, I just want to show you what that math channel looks like real quickly. If I bring this up, we could have went into the math channel and opened it all up, but we can see it here. The absolute value of the GPS lateral acceleration, we will consider it cornering if it's greater than 0.25 Gs. If it's either way, greater than 0.25, you could make that 0.5 if you want. In your case, you can just come in and tweak that. And but that's what I used here. And so here is all the time the car is cornering. And here is the lateral G, so we can kind of look at it. Here's the amount of time the car was in a corner. So these lap times are 84 seconds long or so. And if we come here to the end, 55, 56 seconds of that 80 some seconds, the car is turning at Portland. And it's got a pretty long straightaway, and it might be right at the down this straightaway. Yeah, the back straightaway is curved enough that it's actually thinking it's in a corner. I probably would adjust that down a little bit to try to make sure it doesn't capture that as a straightaway. But up to you. Do it as you wish. Here's the distance, and here's the percentage, real rolling time and percentage that the car is turning. Kind of interesting data just to be able to jump in and see it. We have the corner report. I'm going to go over this one a little bit quicker, and the next one even quicker yet, because we're just showing you kind of what's available to you. Here's your laps in a nice little channel report. Here is the distance that the driver was turning. Here's the time that the driver was turning, and here are the car and driver, and this is the percentage of the lap that the car was turning. 65, nearly 70% of the lap. So, and then coasting, something that we all want to know about, and see if there's something. Let's get back to a single lap just to make this a little bit easier to see. On the driver's best lap, what is coasting? How do we define coasting here? The coasting on. Let's hit the little channel options button, channel settings. Coasting in this case is if the brake on is equal to 0, and remember the brake is only on when you're on the brake. So we're basically looking for when you're not on the brakes, you're not on, as we've defined it. Remember brake on was above 200 psi. If you're not on the brakes, you're not in the throttle position is equal to 0, so you're not above 85% throttle, and the cornering is equal to 0. In other words, you're less than 0.25 Gs laterally. If all of those are true, we get a 0. If any of them are, if none of them are, actually, if all of them are zeros, this one's going to be a 1. If any of them are a 1, you're not coasting. You can be going through a corner and not be on the throttle, not be on the at the high G's, and they're not on the throttle, not on the brake, but you're high in a corner, we don't consider that coasting, even though you're not on the brake or the throttle, if you're producing enough lateral G's. So when we get in there, we can look at this and we can see that there are a couple of spots where there is, and most of them, if you look at them really closely, it's going to be in a little transition period. And it's typically when the driver is coming before, he's still going in a straight line, but he's transitioning from the throttle off, from coming off the throttle before he hits the brakes. And if we look at this and we hit the maybe the delta function here real quickly, this is really 0.125 seconds. So keep in mind that you're never going to stay, you're coasting. I always like to show that because people look at this and, boy, this driver was coasting quite a bit. Well, in reality, if we put this at the end of it, that coasting was 0.8, and it was all transition periods between throttle and brake. If they're a newer driver and you're coaching somebody, this is a really, really helpful thing when they come in and maybe they coast a little bit at the high speed, transitions from high speed into corners. So, as John says in the chat box, I found this data, and John has shared this data, allowed me to share this data in the past here, including some questions he had. But this is John Barnum from our chat. It's his son JD running at Portland. So I used that session. I wanted to use somebody that was fairly skilled, and so we could really look at have to get in and look a little bit closer. And so you can see percentages of laps, how the distance that the driver coasted. Distance was only 83. When you're doing 120 miles an hour, 83 feet goes by in a real hurry, like only 0.8 seconds. Okay, and then a coasting report. We can come in and we can say, okay, what was the distance per lap that the driver coasted? There's a couple laps here. The one just before his best lap, which was only 83 feet, which we were just looking at, the lap before was 184 feet. Let's go in, just for fun, and let's go back and let's look at the lap before. So instead of lap 12, let's look at lap 11. Let's turn off that one and see where that big difference kind of came in. And we're just going to rescale this a little bit. And here, 1.8 seconds and 184 feet. And there was a pretty long one here that might be a little bit still in the transition, but that was a little bit of a longer time, and a little bit right after it, as maybe he lifted. We could turn on channels, figure out why, what happened, where did it happen, why did it happen, right? This is helping us figure out what happened, certainly the where, and then all we got to do is maybe turn on a few other channels to understand exactly why it happened. So there's a few down over here, but again, pretty close to transition areas, but just a little longer transition on, especially that one right there. Looks like it climbed quite a bit. This one here also quite a large climb. Okay, so coasting reports helps us figure some of this stuff out. One other thing I've skipped over real quickly, but I want to go back to it. This one here was kind of an interesting one to me. Just a channel report where we can kind of dig in a little bit and see some other things, right? So I just thought I would show that it's part of this driver performance standard one here. Okay, we've kind of looked at this one. Let's look at what I'm calling the advanced driver profile. I wanted to kind of split them apart. It's not super advanced, but I wanted to kind of keep them where we don't overload the profiles. So how do we change profiles? It's as simple as going into our profile list. Once you've saved it into your list here, we can come in here, and here's our AIM driver performance advanced. So if we just double click on that, it goes in, retains that exact same data, sits there on that same lap we were just on, and it changes everything. And this is just a real basic one, but has a few more math channels applied and looking at it in some different ways. And I thought this would be kind of a cool way of kind of closing up the session as we finish up today. I always end up with a scratch tab. You can say work, it can say anything, but it allows me a place to come in and just add channels and do different things however I wish to do it, right? Without worrying about screwing up the true tabs that I probably don't want to add channels and change a ton of, at least at the track during the session. So if we come in here, here's another corner tab. We kind of see the same things we were seeing a little bit ago, but there's a couple of additional things here. There's the speed. We have our corner on. We're going to focus on cornering. And the we have a corner rate. And what it is it's an absolute value of the corners, and I put it in feet per second squared instead of G's. Here's your lateral absolute in G's. So these are exactly the same shape. It's just one is 32 point, 1 G equals 32 point some feet per second squared. It's an exact value, just much larger number. And what that helps me for, you're going to see in just a minute. And the other one that I showed you is a corner radius. We have a corner radius down here, so we can kind of actually see a little bit more information about how the driver attacked the corner. In order to do this, if you're going to use the methods that I'm about to show you in the next 5 minutes or so, I like to set things up with a different track map. I like to use segments when I do this, and I want the corners to be much more better defined than just a big old corner. And you'll see why here in just a moment. So I always create just a bunch of different track map segments. You'll see here there's an acceleration one. I have one for some compliance testing I do. There's corners, there's lap times, there's your standard one for splits, there's one for straights, and there's one here that I saved for a webinar we did. So in this case, I'm going to select corners, and I broke the track into different segments, which you're going to see why the power of doing some of what we've been talking about so far, but doing it in a segment-based world is very powerful. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to click on OK, or exit. You're going to see that these segments have changed. And what I do is I use blue for corners. You can do it any way you want. But if I zoom in a little bit, you're going to see that this is Portland. And this is turn 4 at Portland. You can see there's the dot. This is turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, and turn 7. Some of these other corners, I've left them kind of a different colored blue. There are some other corners here, but they're not really great for what I'm going to try to show you how to do it. So you pick a corner that is basically you G up, and then you sit there for a little bit, and then you come down off it. You don't want one where you just peak and then come right back down. You want to know, we're trying to figure out how good the driver is about getting into the corner, or how good the car is. Getting in the corner, how's the car performing with that driver in there? And so we've done some math channels to kind of help us do that. So I'm going to zoom in on turn 4, zoom back out just a tick. And in our corner tab here, you can see, here is the lateral G's. You'll see, let me back out a little bit more even. You'll see that we're coming into the corner right here. We're still back in here, we haven't started turning in yet. I don't want to capture the turn in. I don't want to see how good the car transitions. Maybe I do, but in this particular thing I'm going to show you today, I want to show you, you notice that I broke down the segment of turn 4 when the car achieved maximum G's, and I looked at a number of laps, and pretty consistent here. And then over here where it was still at max G's before it started to fall off. And I segmented the corner and called it turn 4. So basically the car is at full lateral G's here and full lateral G's here. And what I then want to do is I want to see about how the driver drove the corner, as far as did he diamond off the corner, and you can kind of see that you can see he kind of released his hands a little bit here. This number is a little bit bigger, 302, than 261. So right here the driver tightened up the corner in this area. Little things like that. I want to know what the average G's were in here. So let's go to the corner report, and let's show you some pretty interesting things you might want to be using in maybe some of yours. Here is a very detailed way of breaking down a corner, but this is the entire lap. In this case, I've turned on the segments. I've told it I want to see the segments in this particular corner report. So I'm going to go down to turn 4. Here is turn 4, and kind of some fairly interesting things here. Let's go to turn 5. It might even be more interesting. The turn 5 is this corner over here, right? And so the turn 5, what we're looking at is how much time it took to get through the segment. It aimed the Race Studio software, the corner report, this channel report. If you're using segments, wherever you broke the segment start and end, it's telling us how what the time you were in there, the distance, and then I've done some things here where I took that corner rate and I've done the average it outside of zero, non-Z, and give me the average when it was not zero. And here is the average for this corner for every time through there in feet per second squared. Here it is in G's, for those of you that are a little bit more comfortable in looking at G's. Here's that. Here it is the maximum G's that the driver hit in the corner. You can see this is about 1.38, 1.14, 136. And here's the average G's in the corner. Something you might want to know. This is the distance that the driver drove. Look at what's interesting here. And we'll dig back into this in a minute, but this is lap 1 through 23. He traveled less early, 163 feet, 164, 65, 66, 68, 71, dropped down a little bit, 69s again, 70, 71s. Interesting that he was attacking the corner in a slightly different way as time gone on. We're going to break and take a look at that here in a second. Here's the amount of time that the driver was in this segment, a little bit closer. Here is the minimum radius that the driver turned. Here was the tightest that the driver turned, 197. On the best lap was 216. We can sort this based on the time in the segment by clicking on the time icon. Here is the fastest time through here, and we can kind of see that kind of interesting that the fastest, this whole upper half, the fastest times through here were shorter than the run down here, all the runs down here, sorting it on lap time. If we sort it on distance, you can kind of see that the lap times are, this first 8 or 9 laps here are all fairly quick. And based on that, is there a correlation between those two? We'd want to dig in a little bit more and find out. Let's sort just back by laps, numbers. Here is the corner radius. I talked about the minimum. Here's the average corner radius that all the math that I've done that you can grab and use this user profile in the math channels I've provided. Here's the average radius. You can kind of see when he went a little tighter on it. Here's one where he was pretty wide open. See all that? Here's the minimum speed in this corner as we've defined it. This is the minimum speed for each time that driver went through that particular corner, and here's the average speed. So there's a ton of information that you can look at and break down all of these corners. If we go to let's leave it on this one for a second. Let me go back to the corner. I want to show you something. Remember we talked about how the driver kept getting longer in distance. It's kind of as we close this up. Let's go back to the corner, and let's go back up. Let's zoom out so we can easily change laps here a little bit easier. Let's leave this one in the middle. Let's grab an early one and let's grab a late one. I'm just randomly picking here, and now we can kind of jump in here. And remember, it was this corner here that we were looking at. And let's change the layout of that real quickly. So now I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Color method. Let's color it by lap. Okay, so the green one was a little bit later. Let's zoom out on that a little bit so we can see the whole thing. Maybe a little bit more. Let's move this over just for fun. Make it a little easier for everybody to see. Remember, the red one is the early lap 4. Look at how it was tight and holding it tight coming off the corner and getting set up for this next corner maybe a little bit better. The blue one in the middle, remember, started to run a little bit longer laps. He was starting to free it up. And then the green one, even more so, even a little bit earlier that he started to free up the car. Driver may have had a good reason for that. We can dig in. We kind of know from looking at the corner report that generally speaking, the faster laps were coming with the shorter travel distance. So, maybe this stuff that was a little bit earlier might have been working better to get through there. And then we would want to study this next corner and understand if that helped there too, right? Because just because you do one area right, you could hurt the next one. So we'd want to dig in and look a little deeper. Just giving you some ideas of how to read this, and with some of this additional information in this advanced profile that I've shared with you, might be something that you can maybe use for yourself. You could build this exact same thing with a lot of these same things for braking and for acceleration, in all of the different areas that we might want to look at. You can kind of use these same templates of math channels to build for other things. I just shared the cornering one with you today. Hopefully that helps. Some of the different things that we wanted to talk about a little bit today. The whole driver performance data analysis piece is probably the most used piece of the software, the most reason that people use the software, Ray Studio 3 Analysis. It is our bread and butter, our core of what folks, our customer, they're out there, they've got their car and they're trying to get themselves better. Of course, they're also looking at the vehicle performance and the vehicle health as well. But this is a big piece of what they do, and I spent a lot of extra time here, not necessarily telling you how to read every single line, but I really wanted to push and give you maybe a tool with these user profiles and these math channels that you might be able to take away, add to your own, adjust the math channels really quickly, and put this together and see if that works for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. I put in all those things into the chat box. If you don't get those here today, go ahead and look at the YouTube description. All of those same links will be there as well. Okay, there. Let me bring the presentation back up. Let's see. Let's do this here. As we kind of close this one down, as I've just mentioned, all this we're recording this. We'll put this up onto the website and to the YouTube site. If you haven't been there before, YouTube at AIM Data, and if you do go there and you watch a few of the videos, go ahead and subscribe, and you'll get a link every time we have new videos that show up there when I put them up there. So keep that in mind, and look forward to seeing you over there. Customer support. It's what we do here. We're all over the country. It is trade show time right now. It's the PRI show, starts in a couple of days. Almost all of the staff is there right now, and so I put a picture of last year as folks were kind of setting up the show last year. So that's one of the big ways we support people, is we talk to people 12 hours a day there while we're there at that show, and really an enjoyable thing. We get to meet lots of our good customers. Our next webinar is we're going to have on January 13th, where we actually come together and we talk a little bit about what we saw and what we heard and what we shared with a lot of folks at the PRI show. That's where we do display any of our new products, new software, new things. So come back on January 13th, 6 p.m. Pacific, about a month from now, when we'll have a PRI review and any update on any new products that we happen to have. So keep that in mind. If you're in Indianapolis, anywhere near there, and you are going to join the PRI show, booth 3257 in the Yellow Hall is where our booth is. It's a big booth. We have a car in there again this year, and all of our new products. You'll have folks from Italy will be there. Our friend Emiliano, who's here with us is quite a bit, is there as well. From the software side, there's some people from the ECU side. There's people there with hardware, so from Italy, and so and then of course all of our AIM technicians and AIM management is all there as well. So everybody, go ahead and if you're there, make sure you drop by and say hi. Contact information, if there's something you guys may want from me, Roger at aimsports.com is how you get a hold of me. Go ahead and drop me a note, and I look forward to helping you in any way that I can. Thanks everybody for coming again. We're ending our 6th year of doing these. This is our 23rd one of 2025 here. 623 up in the top is how I keep track of it. And so by the time we come back next time, it will be number 7-1 in January as we start a new year. So thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Make sure you download anything you got here. If you have any questions about this, give us a holler, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you. Everybody, happy holidays, and make sure you take care and be safe in this time of all this bad weather that's all around the country. So everybody be safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one. Everybody, talk to you soon. Have a good next month.